Hi, I'm Joe Carrero. You know, it's amazing over the years how many issues come up at election time that soon become forgotten after those do-nothing members of Congress and newly elected presidents who are full of promises finish their campaigns and start serving in office. Social Security is one of those election time issues that conjures up all kinds of political rhetoric on both sides, but never gets resolved because it can evoke hot button sound bites valuable to those who use it as a scare tactic on those who consider it a right and those who consider it a burden. We now hear idiotic pandering calling it a Ponzi or a pyramid scheme or even welfare, but we rarely hear such explanations presenting facts because those running for political office don't know anything about issues beyond the soundbite they use to get your support. If anything, we should call Social Security a bait and switch by the government. But what it actually is called is the Old Age Survivors and Disability Insurance Program. Yes, Social Security is an insurance program that was established to be there to provide minimum living expenses to those unable to do so, and is primarily funded through payroll taxes established by the Federal Insurance Contributions Act, FICA, which are then deposited in trust funds managed by the U.S. Treasury. Now, over the years, those deposits in those trust funds have exceeded benefits paid out by trillions of dollars, which meant that the Treasury was able to take those funds and invest them in government bonds to fund the government. Alas, the federal deficit. So when the payroll tax revenue becomes insufficient to cover Social Security benefits, the system will have to try to begin to withdraw money from the Social Security Trust Fund, whose assets are now special Treasury bonds that have been lent back to the federal government to pay for other expenses running the government. How come no one ever asked why those monies weren't invested in other government commodities other than those that just expand our debt with a minimal interest rate that never gets returned? When I started working as a high school student at 15 years old, I paid into Social Security. When I worked full-time to put myself through college, I paid Social Security. And after I served in the armed forces, when I worked either as a stockbroker or delivered pizzas for my restaurant business, I paid Social Security and continued to do so no matter what type of work I was doing. I consummated my part of the contract with the federal government with a guarantee that after 50 years of paying in, that I would receive a meager pension that wouldn't sustain my monthly living expenses. A Ponzi scheme? No. But a bait and switch that offered insurance in a program that promised the monies I paid in would not be tampered with or used to fund government, but would be there, including interest, to ensure that I have something to pay my bills when I get older, even with inflated dollars. Now I'm hearing that those on Social Security are leeches and parasites and create a burden on our economy. I submit that these very people making those comments have been the actual leeches and parasites to the system by not paying their fair share. Those making over $160,000 a year don't have to make a contribution to the fund based on anything over than that $106,000, meaning that they pay less a percentage of their income than those who make less. So if I can make $200,000 a year, I don't know why I don't have to pay any FICA on $94,000, which is quite a chunk of savings. And you know, if I'm making that much, I probably don't need as much insurance to provide for the minimal living expenses that someone making $30,000 is provided. And why don't candidates address that issue? I remember questioning that scenario way back when I was in graduate school and had some influential company in that point of view, namely economist Milton Friedman, for one. And the reason candidates don't address that issue is because they either haven't thought about it or they don't want to offend all those wealthy supporters they hope to convince that they're smart enough to get us out of our current economic mess. You see, they know that the actuarial tables show that those that make over $106,000 a year live longer than those making less. So not only do they pay lower percentage, but they get paid for a longer period of time. And they also know that those making over $106,000 contribute more to campaigns and vote more in elections than those with lower incomes. So there are a lot of inequities out there on both sides of these issues that probably should be addressed. But we've allowed a simulation of class warfare prompted by both political parties seeking power and your support. You know, folks, I think politics brings out the worst in people. Its goal is to anger and divide us to the point of not listening to facts and keeping promises. Political parties continually feed both sides of issues, the red meat that is really a red herring with no other purpose than to create issues that prevent solving the problems. Social Security is a good system. It needs to be tweaked so that those in future generations can be given the same insurance that previous generations have been granted. It's politics that is refusing to change. Since a previous generation could establish such a complicated system of providing for so many of our citizens, we should probably be able to come up with some minor adjustments that can keep it solvent. And maybe when we finish that, we can stop the government from taking money from all those other funds that were supposed to provide a promise of future security and stability, like the road funds that were established to guarantee safety through maintenance so that we can have safe bridges and roads rather than paying the expenses of an overspending government. Our government is running amok because we let them get away with it. And as soon as both sides of the issues keep us divided, they will continue to destroy our future. Let's stay alert and join together to get the facts straight and solve our real problems together. And thanks for listening to An Average Joe.